5 lumens per watt for fixtures. Okay, so we made it through that. And I believe we have, for the administration, I see Director Ganser. And I don't know if DPP is present as well. But I'll let Mr. Ganser go ahead and, do you want to come up and just provide any insight or opinion you have? Mahalo for all your work on this.
No, mahalo to you and to team and to the collaborative nature of all the stakeholders involved, all the city agencies and industry folks and other energy advocacy stakeholders too. Obviously, per council members' relay of that hand carry, there's a lot of details in here, and the definitions do ultimately matter, and we appreciate everyone's eyes on those. Just to recap, this was prepared and near ready to be passed out in June of last month. We put a pause on that because Council Services was inclined to give it one final read-through. Codes can be complex, and they wanted to make sure that it all read logically. So from that, there's only been one real substantive change, and that was the large homes compliance measure that council member just mentioned. But we're feeling good about it. Testimony reflects a balanced and engaged process, and we appreciate everyone's involvement for more now than 16 months since we initiated engagement up until when the bill was first introduced at the start of this year.
I appreciate that, Director. Understanding you and your office have been working on it even before we got it. And so mahalo for your work. All the stakeholders that have engaged, OCS, of course, Ryan Kobayashi, Leitani Peltier, for your help. Are there any questions for Director Ganser? Okay. Since seeing none, we'll go ahead and go over to testimony. Mahalo, Director, if you could just stand by in case. Clerks, do we have any in-person registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have in-person testifiers.
That was Mr. Glick.
Yes.
Okay, Mark Glick, if you wanted to, mahalo for being here today. If you wanted to provide your name and testimony when you're ready.
Chair Ware, committee members, my name is Howard Wigg, here for Mark Glick in support of this bill. We're all aware of the governor's proclamation urging a lot more affordable housing, and we're aware that the reason given sometimes why housing is so expensive is regulations, and within regulations, this bill is specifically cited as a cost riser. I'm here to say that in some instances, this bill reduces the cost of housing. Number one, it eliminates the need for insulation in the floors of homes. We have a beautiful climate, we don't need that. Number two, it eliminates the need for insulation in roofs and walls by reflecting or by substituting reflective roofs and walls for the insulation. And finally, it harvests the vast improvements experienced with LED lights. I was one of the authors of the original bill. Back then, those lights were dinosaurs. Today, they are greatly improved. Thank you.
Mahalo. Any questions for the testifier? Mahalo for your time. Is there any other in-person testifiers? I see Ms. Young approaching. And it looks like that may be the only in-person remaining. Please proceed when you're ready.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and City Council members. Angela Melody Young testifying in strong support of Bill 4 relating to the adoption of the State Energy Conservation Code. So from the Hawaii Revised Statute, Chapter 196-72, it is a guide of statutory duties in which the Chief Energy Officer of the Hawaii State Energy Office shall coordinate the state's energy programs with those of the federal government and state governments, the political subdivisions of the state, agencies from the state, and international nations. And the statute provides parameters that it will support the development, evaluation, revision, and adoption of energy-related codes and standards that advance the state's energy goals. And because there are several initiatives in Bill 4 which support the affordable housing priorities from the Green administration, we'd also like to show our support. Thank you.
Mahalo. Any questions for Ms. Young? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Now going over to remote testimony, I have Christopher Delaney. I don't see him on.
Testifier is not present.
Okay, and then we have Will Kane, who I do see. Please proceed when you're ready, and mahalo for joining today.
Mahalo, Chair and members of the committee. Will Kane on behalf of Hawaii Gas. So we would stand out a written testimony in support of the proposed CD2. We haven't seen the hand-delivered copy, obviously, but from what you described, I don't know if we have any concerns. But as it stands now, we're in support, and I'm here for any questions. Mahalo.
Mahalo for that. And I'll just note that if you'd have any concerns, or just clarify for you that the hand carry doesn't make any adjustments to the references to natural gas use under state law that were modified or clarified to reflect what the state law is. So appreciate it.
Mahalo, Chair. Thank you.
Any questions for testifiers? Since seeing none, mahalo for your time. And we'll go to, I have Stephanie Sakamoto registered but do not see her logged on. Madam Clerk, is Ms. Sakamoto or anyone else online to testify?
Stephanie Sakamoto is not present, and we have no testifiers.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So that would complete and close out our testimony. So members, invite any discussion before I make my recommendation. Looks like Councilmember Dos Santos Tam has some thoughts.
Thank you. I want to actually praise you as chair in working on this. I know it took several months, but when we started with this bill, I think that there were several points of friction that still existed. I also want to thank OCCSR for working diligently over those past few months to bring the stakeholders together. But what I've seen in today's testimony, I mean, it's almost uniformly supportive. I think this really speaks to everybody getting on board with the idea that we need to take a step forward and we need to show leadership in the clean energy space. And it takes a lot of effort to get there, but I want to thank you for your leadership in getting us to this point and getting us to a bill that the stakeholders seem to agree on. And coming from a background in the construction industry, I know how hard that can be. But seemingly we've got a bill that seems to work and will hopefully move us forward. So thank you.
Appreciate that, Councilmember. Any other thoughts or points of discussion? Just wanted to echo that all the stakeholders and folks involved deserve a lot of credit, and I think, as mentioned, appreciate the work of CCSR, OCS, Ryan, Litani, all the stakeholders that spent time sifting through it, and so I think it is a testament to what we can accomplish when we spend more time talking and sitting down. So look forward to a lot of that in the future. So I'm going to make my recommendation that Bill 4, 2023, CD1 be amended to the hand-carried CD2, OCS 2023-0690, dated 7/26/2023, 9:53 a.m. Any discussion, objections, reservations? Hearing none, Bill 4, 2023, CD1 is amended to CD2. The chair then recommends that Bill 4, 2023, CD2 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. And then that brings us to agenda item number 7. Okay, so agenda item number 7, informational briefing. Want to mahalo our participants, presenters today for waiting through the entire hearing. We'll be doing an introduction or having an introduction and overview of the Commercial Property Assessed Financing or CPACE program. for clean energy resiliency. Members, for your information, the presentation is included in your handouts and available online is Miscellaneous Communication 406. So if with that, I'll turn it over for, do you want to do introductions and then just dive right in? Mahalo.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you so much for having us on your agenda this afternoon. My name is Gwen Yamamoto Lau from the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority.
Good afternoon. My name is Noni Toledo. I'm representing an organization, nonprofit organization, that is made up of banks, what we call CPACE financial institutions, administrators such as HGIA, and other interested parties who can help to finance clean and renewable and resilient projects in the counties. Thank you very much for inviting us, Chair and fellow council members. Today what we'd like to talk about is CPACE, or Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy and Resiliency Financing Program. First of all, we would like to thank the council for support of measures that recognize the need to mitigate climate change, carbon, and also to shore up our infrastructure in order to prevent or help when we have natural disasters, as well as making our cities safe. We appreciate the balance that you face and recognize in promoting jobs, economic development, and being able to provide us living in an affordable city. The commercial entities in our city and county also face similar challenges. And in fact, many of them have what we call the ESG goals that they would like to meet in order to be promoting clean energy and mitigating climate change. We'd like to start off with just a little bit of background and definition of what is CPACE. In 2022, the state enacted Act 183, which authorizes the county to level a non-ad valorem special assessment to allow voluntary assessments by commercial entities or commercial facilities to finance qualified improvements attached to their properties. This program utilizes private capital. There are no public funds of the state nor of the city and county that are required, and there's no impact to the property tax at all. Property tax will always remain in the first position in terms of the lien. And the types of projects that this can fund would be resiliency, as well as clean energy that provides for a public benefit. This type of program also qualifies for brand new buildings, as well as to retrofit existing buildings. The program would be administered by HGIA, which is authorized in the statute, and the ability for the county to adopt this program is voluntary, which is stated in the statute. I should add that we are approaching all of the counties across the state, and in all of the other counties, they agree that this is something that they want to adopt, and so they're introducing ordinances in order to allow them to do so. Just a little bit of background of CPACE. Nationally, CPACE was recognized as a means to finance a gap in funding that the Department of Energy found in terms of energy efficiency. Because when you're funding things like energy efficiency, it usually has a very short-term amortization of 5 to 8 years. Therefore, as counties were trying to increase the energy efficiency mandates, basically, or the building codes, they were getting pushback because it costs the business too much. Whereas if you can push out the financing structure, then usually the cost of the improvement can more than pay for itself with the energy savings. So they decided to adopt this program called CPACE, and quickly the private financiers said, they volunteered and said, well, we can do that without costing the counties or the states any money. So currently, there are 36 states that have adopted CPACE. Counties and cities, of course, who have to administer the CPACE program have also adopted it as well. And currently, there's over $2.5 billion in projects and 2,500 projects that are currently in use.
So who is the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority? I'm sure some of you might be wondering that. We are an agency attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, and our objective is to provide clean energy and make it accessible and affordable to underserved ratepayers who are currently locked out of getting an affordable loan or even a loan at all. We do this by providing inclusive and non-traditional financing and leveraging an innovative financing mechanism, which is on the HECO utility bill. We also administer the federal state small business credit initiative, which is to provide access to capital for small businesses and nonprofits statewide. And as Noni mentioned, last year we were authorized to administer the CPACE programs on behalf of the counties. And again, it is to leverage an innovative financing mechanism that mitigates risk and attracts private capital. And that is private capital that can be used for public good, such as lowering the greenhouse gas reduction. So as Noni mentioned, a CPACE loan is a voluntary special assessment. The commercial property owner volunteers to put an assessment on their property in exchange for below market financing that is termed out long in order for them to have the payments be more affordable. Amortizations are typically over the life of the system that is being retrofit. So for example, if they're installing a solar PV system, that currently is 20 to 25 years. The longer amortization periods, as Noni mentioned, cause the monthly payments that are due to be decreased, and it makes it a lot more affordable. With retrofits, we can typically finance 100% of the costs. Typically, when you go in for traditional lending, the lender might require some kind of down payment, but this will finance 100% of the cost. It is non-accelerating. It's just like a property tax. So in the case of default, if we made $1 million PV loan, the $1 million is not due and payable. The only amount due is the amount that is past due and currently due. And the CPACE loan is transferable from property owner to property owner. So to qualify for a loan, the retrofit needs to be on the property or attached to a building on the property. Therefore, the benefits pass from property to property owner, as does the obligation. And it is a separate capital stack from the first mortgage or second mortgage, so it does not require refinancing. This gives you an idea of what the CPACE loan looks like. So if you look at the top of the screen is property tax. That's the lowest risk there is. The CPACE loan falls under it. The property tax remains its senior priority. And then comes first mortgages, second mortgages, and equipment loan. The lower you go down, the higher the risk for the lender. Therefore, the higher the risk, the shorter the term, the higher the interest rate. So the right side provides you an example of what the capital stack might look like before a CPACE and with CPACE. What CPACE is looking at doing is replacing that purple mezzanine debt. The purple mezzanine debt is typically a shorter term, higher rate loan. In this example, it's 12%, typically 8 years. The CPACE loan can go out, as I mentioned, for the term of the life of the system, as well as, in this case, the rate is 7%. This makes it cash flow friendly for your commercial property owners in Honolulu.
So you might be wondering, what are the types of projects that are allowed in this resiliency and clean renewable energy initiative? So we have the energy efficiency type of projects, which would include retrofitting HVAC, lighting, water fixtures such as faucets, The irrigation can also be energy efficient. Elevators, ventilation, windows, the roofing, the insulation of roofs, very important, as well as roofing in order to be able to handle the weight of PV. For your clean renewable energy, you do have PV, you have batteries, and importantly, you also can use it to install EV chargers, which I know is an interest of this council. Water heaters, cogeneration, the ability to generate their own energy. Importantly, when Gwen had put this bill through, she was thinking cesspool conversions. And so it can also be used for cesspool conversions, which is a big, big issue in our state. This particular program only applies to commercial, but there are still commercial cesspools who were supposed to convert in 2004 who are still not in compliance. Importantly, too, we have, for instance, hotels who are trying to save water, so they want to reuse their gray water, use it for their irrigation of their landscape. So those types of projects would qualify. We have fire sprinkler installations, another hot topic for this council, where it's very, very expensive for condos to install fire sprinklers. Now with CPACE, they can, again, amortize over a longer life. A lower interest rate might be a solution to help with that problem. Natural disasters, shoring up hurricane, seismic retrofits, anything to do with a storm or a natural disaster. So it helps our buildings become much more hardened. And then what's really, really nice is the way that the statute on the state side, on the state statute was built, is that it also includes agricultural facilities. And we all know what a hard time the farmers are having in terms of affording energy, affording being able to pull together a production and a processing center, because now they need refrigeration in order to comply with the rules of food safety. So they can also utilize CPACE on an agricultural facility. For the purposes of the statute, and if you choose to advance an ordinance, what is nice is that just for this particular topic, the definition of commercial properties includes things like affordable housing, any multi-tenant building over 5 units, condominiums, hotels, hospitals, healthcare, office buildings, the retail and the malls, agricultural facilities, as we said, as well as nonprofit. So educational facilities, social welfare, cultural type of institutions. And again, that definition does not change your definition of property tax for the administration and for you, only for purposes of financing CPACE.
So what's the benefits to the property owner? I think you've already heard some of it, right? It's often cash flow friendly, positive, meaning that the commercial entity that owns that commercial property has more operating cash flow to help with their operations, as well as paying their property tax and other debts. It is a separate capital stack. It does not require a refinance of a first or second mortgage. New construction will typically have a CPACE loan of about 15 to 25%. So it just takes a small portion, that mezzanine debt portion. As mentioned, the retrofits are typically 100% financed. These retrofits increases the marketability of the property as well as for attracting tenants. Hurricane and safety hardening lowers insurance costs. And as Noni mentioned, there has been 0 foreclosures nationwide. What's the benefits for the county? No investment needed for the county. This leverages private capital to help with some public good that we need to do in as far as our climate change and things like that. The private investment will help upgrade aging infrastructure that we have in the city. It can help with higher efficiency standards that the county have passed or are contemplating. We are looking at ways to lower the burden on the county so the county has the option to engage HGIA to administer the financing program on its behalf, is including standalone bills, meaning that the county doesn't even have to change its property tax billing system. We will bill on behalf of the counties. If there is a foreclosure, the county can recover its costs from the lender, and again, the property tax remains in senior position. We want the banks and the financial institutions to maintain control. So that means that any CPACE commercial property owner that is contemplating getting a CPACE loan needs to get their bank or mortgage holder, if they have a first or second mortgage, get their consent. So that means the financial institutions maintains control. They need to give consent in order to for their mutual client to get a CPACE loan. Consent can be withheld for any reason. And again, the CPACE loan does not replace the financing of major construction. So the banks always will have that opportunity for construction financing here in Hawaii. Not sure if you guys heard, but the governor had to cut out $1 billion out of the budget that was approved by the legislature because our Council of Revenues had projected a decrease in revenues. And so as a state agency, we're taxed to go out and do economic development, and this will certainly do that. The PACE Nation, which is a nonprofit that does PACE lending nationwide, did a study, and they estimate that if only 15% of our commercial property owners take out a CPACE loan, it could create or retain over 12,000 jobs. It could save 2 billion gallons of water, as well as 2 million fewer tons of carbon emitted into the air. And most importantly, there are shovel-ready projects here in Honolulu that is waiting for this financing. Those projects include fire suppression systems for condos, converting mixed-use properties into multifamily housing, senior living community project, new hotel development, as well as existing hotel renovation, housing projects, and again, large capacity cesspool remediation. So what's required by the county? The administration has been provided a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, if the city decides to engage HGIA to administer the program on its behalf. And also to make it as easy as possible for the city, we had our outside legal counsel draft an ordinance that has been submitted to the council and to the administration. And this ordinance was based on the Statute Act 183, Session Laws 2022. And I just wanted to note that the bill, when it was drafted last year, was reviewed by the state's Deputy Attorney General as well as 2 CPACE attorneys. Questions?
Mahalo. I'll go to Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Mahalo for the presentation. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned at the end of the presentation the shovel-ready projects, and thank you for giving a list. Do you have any that are, I just wanted to know where they are specifically, if you have some indication of where some of these projects are. I'm guessing the hotel would be more in the urban core, but trying to see if any of them are near where our districts are.
So it's actually different locations. The hotel is more on the West Oahu side. The community living is in, it's not in the urban core. It's actually, I'm from Hilo, so I don't know the district, sorry, I apologize. But it's not in the urban core. It's actually on the outskirts of Oahu. The hotel renovation, I think, is in Waikiki.
And also downtown.
The hotel renovation is Waikiki, but the new hotel is in West Oahu, is that?
Right, and there's another hotel conversion downtown. Housing conversions are downtown, as well as throughout the island. Cesspool conversions would be North Shore.
And you don't know if you have any in Central Oahu?
I believe there are some housing developers that are looking at it in Central Oahu. So the important part is that CPACE can provide the opportunity to finance new buildings at a lower cost as well. So it's very important for multi-tenant housing and affordable housing too.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I was just, thank you. I was curious, when you say we have projects already in the works, how does that work if the county hasn't necessarily authorized the program yet? Like, what's the mechanism that's working on in that area?
Right, so these projects are probably right now looking at mezzanine debt, and what they want to do is swap out the mezzanine debt to improve their cash flows.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I'd also like to add that I've had conversations where the developers are saying if they can't get CPACE, they can't continue with the project because the financials just don't pencil out.
Okay, no, that's perfect. And I see Councilmember Dos Santos have no questions, yeah? Okay. Yeah, we're good on quorum, yeah. Okay. Almost, Paul. Did you have any questions, Councilmember Tolpa?
I saw the private presentation. I think maybe, doing the presentation for Pitt because of the fire sprinklers and the challenges we have in the condos might really help with, financing, because we know how expensive that is, and the discussion has been going on for almost 3 years now. So maybe doing the same presentation at Pitt.
Appreciate that. I think each of our districts has particular needs. I think particularly if it was available to residential, that would maybe solve a lot of woes in District 2. And so I don't know what the process would be to have that conversation, because I know that that's a state conversation.
Actually, when we submitted the bill, it was to help with the residential cesspool. We have over 80,000 of them that we need to take care of. However, during the course of the legislative session, we had to carve out the residential, and that's why we're left with the commercial. But we recognize the need.
I appreciate that. Looked like Ms. Toledo may want to add.
Yeah, I just do want to add that CPACE would be a first step in the right direction while the state works through the residential statute.
I appreciate that, because who can offer a CPACE lending? Is that what we call it, or loan?
The loan providers, the finance, yes, banks. So local banks could offer it. We have, for instance, a bank in California who is the largest CPACE provider in California. And then there are private institutions that specialize in CPACE. They're private financiers who are, very well backed. For instance, they're backed by pension funds. Yes.
That's perfect. So that's good to know, because then I'd imagine every bank would support adding residential in, because then if they have the mortgage and this is priority, and they would still have the priority with the CPACE loan, but then also can increase value in the asset, right, by helping do the transition to septic, right? Or office cesspool.
Exactly. Importantly, the banks would have the first right of refusal, or they would have to provide consent, right?
Yeah.
So for any reason, the banks can withhold consent, but if they stood up a CPACE program, they can also offer it to their first mortgagee.
Okay, appreciate that. Last question, and then we'll wrap up. Do we know the status? And I don't want to put Director Gonser on the spot. I know he stayed, so I don't know if that was. I was just curious if you have any insight on this conversation, but I'll defer and let you say no if you don't.
Stay because you got to learn. So yes, again, Matt Gonser, Executive Director, Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. We've been in close communications with Gwen and team and Director Kawano from BFS, receiving, trying to digest, and see what might make most sense for the city as well.
Okay, so MOU is potentially there.
I haven't seen the draft, but again, they've been sharing directly with Budget and Fiscal Services, and it's ongoing discussion, and it's a great opportunity for more to get familiar with what might be possible.
Awesome, good to hear. Appreciate that. If you have any final thoughts, I'll let you share them. Otherwise, I don't see any other questions from the council members.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, when the law passed, our state agency created a permitted interaction group to create the design of the program. On the PIG was Deanna Sacco, who is the Director of Finance for County of Hawaii. She represented the counties and the city. So I just wanted to share that because I think that's an important nuance for you.
Mahalo.
And I think the perhaps the final takeaway is it does not cost the county any money. There's no risk to the county. It's all private institutions or banks lending the money, and then it helps our resiliency throughout the island. Thank you very much.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, and appreciate your time. So I think I still have to take testimony. I'll go to clerks. Madam Clerk, are there any in-person registered or unregistered or online registered or unregistered testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Yeah, members in discussion. Since no discussion, there is been no further business. This meeting is adjourned. Mahalo.